Today on Steelers Talk, we've got Stock Watch for the 2026 QB class. When it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, as this team continues their search for their next long-term answer at the quarterback position, there's certainly quite a few quarterbacks that could be taken in the first round of the NFL draft in Pittsburgh next year. And today, I'm going to be sharing my updated thoughts on all the top guys in this year's class. Now, make sure you guys stay tuned to the end of today's show for two quarterbacks that I think could, by the end of this process, be first-round picks that nobody, or at least not many people, are talking about right now. Now, before we get into the video today, predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a quarterback in round one of the 2026 NFL Draft? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, I think they absolutely will. All right, so now let's start with the guys at the top of the class, because it really feels like we have our big three. We have the three guys that are pretty much for sure going to go in the top 10 of the NFL draft. That is, if they all come out. And that is Indiana's Fernando Mendoza, that is Oregon's Dante Moore, and that is Alabama's Ty Simpson. I think that these three guys have consistently played very good football all throughout the 2025 college football season. And I would say the only guy among these three that is for sure coming out is Fernando Mendoza. He's a redshirt junior. Obviously he's got a ton of Heisman hype right now after that awesome, finish versus Penn State last week. He's got serious arm talent, can layer throws over the middle of the field, can throw it down the sideline as a cannon of an arm. He's got a little bit of athleticism as well. Not the best pocket presence, not the most out-of-structure playmaking ability in the world either, but he's got the profile of someone that projects to be like a more athletic version of like Jared Goff. And Goff has been super productive in the right situation there in Detroit. This guy reminds me a lot of his profile, and I certainly think that's worth a top 10 selection. I think Ty Simpson is actually my number one quarterback in this class right now. The sheer amount of NFL quality throws over the middle of the field on his film this year in the SEC has been mind-boggling. I mean, he is fearless throwing the ball over the middle of the field with anticipation into tight windows with precision and accuracy. He's already proficient playing under center and playing in the play-action game. That's something the Steelers really want to do with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. He did a ton of it in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill. And, Simpson, I think, certainly should come out, but there's some rumors that he could stay at Alabama, because when Ty Simpson, a young Ty Simpson, was growing up, dreaming about, his football dreams, he wasn't dreaming of playing in the National Football League. He was dreaming of playing quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And he finally, he had to wait for his opportunity. He finally got it this year. And he's still got another year of eligibility. So, some people around him are thinking this has been his lifelong dream. He's not going to just want 1 year of it. He's going to want a full 2 years being the starting quarterback of the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if he's like the bona fide number one overall pick, there's going to be a lot of people in his ear saying, you got to go this year. And my guess is he probably will. We'll see how his Heisman campaign goes over the next few weeks. But, he loves the Alabama Crimson Tide, and it's going to take quite a bit for him to not come back for that second year of starting. But then Dante Moore, it looks like that he certainly has a chance to stay as well. He's only a redshirt sophomore. There's been some reporting from Todd McShay and others that Oregon is starting to set up the infrastructure for him to stay in place there in Eugene for another season. I think Dante could come out, and the fact that he is still, pretty darn young, I think is actually a positive to his draft profile, because teams can look at him and say, hey, he still has room to grow. He still has an ability there to maybe sit for a year and learn from a veteran quarterback, because he is coming in so young, and he can develop at the NFL level as opposed to developing at the college level. But it's certainly something here where people are starting to notice that the more college snaps you take, the better you translate to the NFL. And that might be something on the mind of Dante Moore, who hasn't gotten to some of those thresholds yet. So certainly talented enough, easy thrower of the football, really good out-of-structure playmaker. And he's shown off some flashes of really high-end mental processing as well. Certainly a top 10 pick if he comes out, but he's just a redshirt sophomore, so he could come back to school. But if any of these guys come out, if the Steelers are going to get any of them, they're going to have to, probably trade up inside the top 10. And I think, for as inconsistent as the Steelers are, I think we all expect them to be somewhere around the 8 to 10 win range this year. And that won't get you inside the top 10. You're going to have to trade up to get one of these guys if you want one of them. Now, if they fall in love with Ty Simpson, or if they fall in love with Mendoza, or if they fall in love with Moore, They just got to have them. I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers trading not only this year's first-round pick, maybe even some additional mid-round picks in this year's NFL draft to go get them, but also next year's 2027 first-round draft pick to go get their guy. I certainly think that there is an arms race going on in the National Football League right now with multiple teams with multiple first-round draft picks, so we'll have to see where the Steelers stack up come this offseason, but I certainly think if you're going to get Mendoza, Moore, or Ty Simpson, you're going to have to probably trade up if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is it worth trading 2 first-round picks to trade up for a quarterback this year? Type T if you would trade 2 first to go get Simpson, Mendoza, or Moore, or type S if you would stay put and not trade up for one of these marquee QB prospects. This will be the pinned comment on today's show, so in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. While I tell you about PrizePicks today, let me know T for trade or S for stay put. Now let's have word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks and the hard-hitting football action this football season. It's even better with our friends on PrizePicks, which is a free app that you can download on your phone right now. The weather might be changing outside, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Join millions of users. Sign up for America's #1 fantasy sports app. You guys can take a look here at my PrizePicks projection for Thursday Night Football this week. I'm taking the more on touchdowns for Breece Hall, the more on passing completions for Drake May, and the more on yards on the first rush for Travion Henderson. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, so now I got 3 guys that are not in that, top tier, upper echelon of guys that are going to go in the top 10, but guys that I think the Steelers and you guys should be keeping your eye on here for the rest of the college football season. The first one is LaNorris Sellers, okay? And anybody that's watched Sellers play this year knows that he still has some development to do. And he's just not, mentally processing defenses at the way that he needs to if he wants to be a day 1 NFL starter. The accuracy has not been there either. There's certainly things that he needs to get better at in order for him to be one of those marquee top 5 caliber pick type of guys heading into the NFL draft next year. And even if he does come out, even with some of the deficiencies he has in his game, Anthony Richardson had a lot of those deficiencies in his game, and he still went in the top 5. So a guy like Sellers, who has a lot of traits you can't teach, incredible playmaking instincts, pocket presence, incredible contact balance as a runner, speed, size, a cannon of an arm. It's a lot of things that in his profile you just can't teach. And, the stuff that you can teach, footwork, so to some degree, accuracy, mental processing. Those are things that, teams would certainly be taking a look at and taking a shot on probably in the first round if he decides to come out. And there's certainly, some talk about him going back to school and playing out his senior year, maybe transferring to a different program that can continue on his development. But there's certainly a risk to coming back for your senior year as well. Just look at Drew Aller. He probably would have been a first-round pick this year if he would have came out in the NFL draft. He had a pretty good end to his season last year, having some really good performances at the end of the season in the college football playoff, etc. Decides to come back to Penn State to try and win a national championship, and not only does he not look very good and he doesn't develop all that much, but then he gets injured, and now he's being talked about as like maybe a late day 2 but probably a day 3 draft prospect when he would have gotten a first-round selection most likely if he would have came out last spring. So that is certainly something that could happen to LaNorris Sellers. If he gets injured or tears his ACL next year coming back to school, that could take him from a potential round 1 prospect if he comes out this year to somebody that's not getting taken on the first day of the NFL draft in 2027. So if I'm Sellers and if my agent is telling me, hey, man, you're probably only going to go like maybe top 15. You might not go top 5, but you get picked somewhere between like pick 8 and pick 15 if you come out this year. I'm coming out of the draft, all right? If anything, I'm going to a team that is better suited to take on my talents. Maybe they have an established veteran quarterback for me to sit behind. And honestly, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could be a really good spot for LaNorris Sellers if he decides to come out in the draft this year, especially if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, because you've got one of the smartest quarterbacks to ever play, one of the best mental processors in the history of the game in Aaron Rodgers, to learn from. And, all the guys that have learned from Rodgers over the years, Jordan Love in Green Bay, Zach Wilson in New York, Will Howard currently here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they all rave about Aaron Rodgers' ability to mentor young quarterback talent. So that could be exactly what LaNorris Sellers needs in his rookie season. You have Rodgers play out the final year of his career as the starting quarterback here in Pittsburgh in 2026, followed by LaNorris Sellers taking the reins in 2027. You could honestly say that might be the best setup for a guy like LaNorris Sellers at this point in his football journey. But a couple guys that I don't think a lot of people are talking about are Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. This guy's a lot of fun, man. And, I look at his film, and, I watched it. I'm going through all these quarterbacks right now. I was like, who is this guy out of Cincinnati that's got crazy arm talent? He's got good size, and he can run. All right, like this guy's got a bunch of great tools. He can mentally process the defense pretty well, too. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot to work with there. And he's put up some really good numbers this year with Cincinnati. He pushes the ball down the field a lot. He only has 2 interceptions on the season. Now, last week, he did not have a particularly great game. I think it was against Utah where, I think he had like 11 completions. So listen, man, a little bit up and down for sure. But this guy would be more of like a late first round type of guy that you don't have to trade up for, but he has a lot of physical tools to work with. He's got a really smooth, fluid throwing motion and a lot of power to that arm as well. And he's got some nice pocket presence, some playmaking instincts, and he can run with the football. There's a lot to work with there for the guy like Brendan Sorsby. That really intrigues me. And if he, really plays well down the stretch here, I got to consider giving him a first-round grade, when I officially do my grades this spring, because I've been really impressed with this young man. And another guy that brings a lot of good stuff to the table is Duke quarterback Darian Mensah. Now, Mensah could certainly come back to school, and so can Sorsby, by the way. But Mensah is somebody that has a lot of physical talent, easy, smooth throwing motion, some really great arm talent, can run with the football as well. And he has had some really good numbers this year as well, man. He's got the tools that you look for, certainly, and he would be coming out a little bit early. So, his representation would have to be telling him, hey, you're probably going to be a first-round pick, because he's got first-round caliber tools. And frankly, there's not a lot of quarterbacks in college football that have put up the numbers that Darian Mensah has put up this year. 24 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions, almost 70% completion percentage, and almost 2,800 yards passing. And that's not even counting what he does as a rusher, guys. Like Darian Mensah has done a hell of a job this year. And when you watch his film, man, it looks like, at times, first-round caliber tape. All right, and this is another guy that I kind of came onto late in terms of his film, but when I saw it, man, I'm like, dude, this guy's better than most of the guys that are getting a lot of the first-round hype right now in certain moments. So definitely keep your eye on Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati and Darian Mensah from Duke. They are 2 very interesting prospects that could be within range of where the Steelers are going to be picking in the first round of the NFL draft this year, and you probably wouldn't have to trade up for them. So take your pick down there in the comment section between these guys, kind of as mid to late first-round quarterback prospects. Which one would you pick? Type LS for LaNorris Sellers, type BS for Brendan Sorsby, or type DM for Darian Mensah. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Honestly, I think I'd be perfectly fine at this point taking any one of these gentlemen in the NFL draft next year. Now, some other interesting names to keep your eye on. Sam Levitt from Arizona State. Love his play style. He's so much fun to watch, but he's so inconsistent at this point in his college career with his accuracy and his mental processing and his decision-making. Plus, he's coming off a major injury, and he still has 2 years left of eligibility. Like, he's going to be coming back to school. But if he does come out of the draft for some reason here this spring, he's got the physical talent that definitely intrigues me. Same thing goes for John Mateer, good rusher of the football, powerful arm, kind of that a little bit funky sidearm release, but he's an absolute gamer, somebody that would be a little bit more of a developmental type of guy, but somebody to keep your eye on for sure if he decides to come out. And then Jaden Mayava from USC, certainly catching my eye with his production this year in Lincoln Riley's USC offense. He has been really good mentally processing defenses. He's been really accurate with the football, not a ton of athleticism and out-of-structure playmaking ability. And he doesn't have like a bazooka of an arm or anything like that, but certainly the production catches your eye in terms of Mayava. And then some other potential dart throws. Like if you don't want to take a quarterback in round 1 or even in round 2 or round 3, you want somebody that has some physical tools, has shown some flashes in college football, but you don't want to spend a high-end draft asset on a quarterback. Cade Klubnik had a really rough start to the year, but he's actually played a little bit better before he got injured. And then Drew Aller, obviously he's got the physical tools and the elastic arm talent, but he's coming off a major injury, and he's never had the mental processing chops in college, so you'd have to develop him. Garrett Nussmeier has had a disaster of a season this year, lots of turnovers. He's been playing with some injuries as well, but he kind of reminds me of like Sam Howell's trajectory, where he was supposed to be like the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Remember that one draft class there, and they ends up going in the 5th round. I see a very similar trajectory for Garrett Nussmeier. And then Carson Beck, some people really like him. Some people think that he's a really high-end mental processor, but he just hasn't ever played consistently well and on the big stages of college football, and he's played some really bad games throughout his career. For me, he's nothing more than a day 3 dart throw. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Thank you for talking some college football with me here today. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know down there in the comment section who your guy is in terms of this year's draft class and who you're hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers draft next year's NFL draft in Pittsburgh.